So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the absolute crash of the Tory party and what a rough week they've had. It's been one hell of a ride, people. I've tried to kind of put the video into themes, but it will be fairly messy, just because there's so many tabs. It's from here to like over here. That's how many things we've got to kind of talk about, and brush over, or gloss over, but that's probably not the right word. But it starts with obviously the mini budget, the pound falling, the bonds kind of struggling dramatically, the Bank of England having to step in. Then you've got the Tories kind of quasi Kwarteng going back and saying, actually, we're not going to get rid of the top rate of tax, the 45 pence tax rate for high earners. And despite the fact that Liz Truss the day before said they would keep it, and then now you've got them, being really confusing about the budget forecast. So Truss's government in chaos after Chancellor refused to confirm he would bring forward the budget to calm markets. Home Secretary accused fellow MPs of a coup against the Prime Minister. That's Braverman accusing fellow MPs of a coup against the government. I don't think she knows what a coup is, but Kwarteng, because they said they would bring the budget forward and they would announce everything in October, so this month, instead of end of November, but then he's suddenly changed his mind on it. I think because he thinks currency is stabilised and the bonds market is stabilising, he doesn't have to. Really strange. You've got Liz Truss here. I'm not going to play this clip because I've watched enough cringe content from her, but effectively she won't back the Chancellor. When she was asked about it, she talked about energy bills and all this other nonsense, which is not relevant to do you have faith in your Chancellor, especially when she blamed the Chancellor for the whole fiasco in the first place, which is not great if you're meant to be a team. You've got some of Liz Truss's cabinet saying her economic reforms are over before they've even begun because she's lost the confidence of the Tory party. That's within 3 weeks. She's lost the confidence of her own party within 3 weeks. Like, that's a record time. Like, she's actually speed run Boris Johnson's whole political life cycle as Prime Minister in 3 weeks. She achieved more U-turns and more kind of bad headlines than Johnson did in 2 years. Or 3 years, however long he was in charge for. That's wild. And effectively, her own cabinet don't have faith in her. Why they're still there? Probably because they want to pass certain policies for their own thing, or maybe they want to be run for leader in the future. But her own cabinet don't have faith in her. And we'll talk about the cabinet a bit more momentarily. You've got Tory MPs told they will lose the whip if they vote against the budget, as Gove refuses to say he'll back it. And it's not just Gove, there's quite a few others that have said the same thing, which is they won't back the budget. And, if the government, voting against the government's budget is effectively, in a way, a vote of no confidence, because you're voting against the government's economic agenda, which is really something. So that's what it's seen as. So it'd be very damaging if, the Tories effectively lost their own budget vote. And if she has to remove the whip from, say, 30 MPs, that's extremely damaging and hampers her majority massively. You've got Nadine Dorries, Mad Nads, saying, we have no mandate from the people to do this, talking about Truss's changes. Conservative government elected on the basis of a manifesto. It's how democracy works. People in 2019 voted on the policy promises we made, and for Boris, we don't want to deliver on the deal with the promises. We need a fresh mandate. So essentially, you've got Nadine Dorries calling for essentially a fresh election here to get a new mandate from the people, even though the Tories, in terms of polls, are in the toilet. So essentially, I stand with Nadine Dorries on this one, wildly enough. You've got, this is before the government's U-turn, which is Tory rebels seek Labour help to stop the budget for the sake of Britain. So essentially, the Tories would have worked with the Labour Party and probably other opposition parties to stop the Tory budget being passed. This is wild. And essentially what they did was, the Tories, these MPs, intelligently, they briefed this stuff to the media in order to force a U-turn from the government, and it worked in the end. They got, the top rate of tax is staying as is. So, fair play to them, which I don't give them a lot of credit because they don't deserve it, but they've done something fairly, good here at least. You got here from Sam Coates saying, forget a consensual approach. Kwasi Kwarteng goes in two-footed, says Britain was facing a slow managed decline. Hello Boris, hello Rishi. So a clear dig at not just Johnson and Rishi Sunak, but also a dig at Philip Hammond, the former Chancellor under Theresa May, obviously Theresa May, George Osborne, and also David Cameron. This is a clear dig at all of them. And he mentions twice, Kwarteng mentions twice the 70-year tax burden. Again, implicit Sunak criticism at a time when Truss's government ought to be reaching out to its supporters. I don't know why he's put Truss's government ought to be reaching out to his supporters. Maybe that's a typo. But point is that they're not making any friends with the broader Conservative Parliamentary Party. The CLP, I think they're called. And so if they don't have the faith of the MPs and they're constantly badgering and constantly hounding these MPs by threatening to remove the whip from them, it's not how you build bridges effectively. And that's what Truss has to do. An 80-seat majority gives you, it's massive. It gives you a lot of power, but if 40 or more of those MPs decide to rebel against you, you haven't got anything. It's just a more embarrassing defeat. You got Braverman saying, I was a supporter of the 45p tax cut rate. So essentially she was in favour of the tax cut, saying members of our parliamentary party staged a coup and undermined the authority of the Prime Minister. So if you want to vote against your own party based on non-manifesto promises, that's a coup according to Braverman. Saying they undermined the authority of the Prime Minister in an unprofessional way. I'm very disappointed how some of my colleagues behaved. That's Braverman, whose dream is to see a plane full of deported people going to Rwanda. Yeah, that's our Home Secretary. I miss Priti Patel some days, apparently. You got Kemi Badenoch saying, criticising her cabinet colleagues, Suella Braverman, for her inflammatory suggestion that Tory critics like Michael Gove had staged a coup over the top rate of income tax. So here you've got open rebelling from cabinet members here. You've got a cabinet member accusing Tory MPs of committing a coup, and then you've got another cabinet member saying that she's wrong, effectively. This is all open, all public. This isn't hidden briefings of Kemi's team says this and Braverman's team says that. These are two ministers effectively being openly rebelling against each other, attacking each other. You've got more here. Lord Frost, remember that man, the Iceman, backing Penny Mordaunt regarding increase on benefits. Frost saying, I've got to say something which I don't say very often, which is I largely agree with PM Penny Mordaunt, not Prime Minister. I think she's got this right. The government made a commitment to upgrade benefits. It shouldn't take on battles it can't win. So here you've got, not only do you have Penny Mordaunt in this statement going against the government here. I don't know if she's given a ministerial role. I should have really checked. But you've got Lord Frost, the Iceman, who's one of the biggest government, one of Johnson's biggest sycophants here, biggest supporters, saying he doesn't back Truss on this one. Crazy. And I don't know how much clout he has in the Tory party, but I'm assuming he must have some, as the former Brexit minister. You've got Johnny Mercer saying, I won't vote for a budget that doesn't see an upgrade on benefits and universal credit in line with inflation. And if that means I get kicked out of the Tory party, fine. Johnny Mercer, a guy who I don't really like that much. But again, credit where Stu being very public in his support of increasing benefits in line with inflation, which is the bare minimum the Tory party should do. There's a lot more they should do really to help people during the cost of living crisis. But this is how bad Truss's government are, that they're going against a lot of MPs here. Johnny Mercer, not the most high profile one, but Penny Mordaunt almost got a second on that ballot. During the leadership contest. She was almost second. She was very much a dark horse in the contest. And let's not forget, I think Penny Mordaunt's a lot more popular with the Tory base than Liz Truss is. So Liz Truss has put herself in a very precarious position here. You've got Lee Anderson saying benefits shouldn't rise in line with inflation because it's unfair to those in work. When the BBC reporter pointed out that the majority of people on benefits are in work, he says we should scrap the licence fee and give that money to those people, or that would help those people. Absolute moron this guy is. But you can see here there's an open split in the Tory party about this, and that's crazy. How are they supposed to get a vote done? You've got this here from the Theresa Kofi speech, and you can just see here people just nap time. She just put the whole audience to sleep. This is during 1 week here, people. This is 1 week of the Tory party conference when your base is meant to be energised. If you look at the difference between the Labour Party conference and this conference, it's night and day. You also had an LGBT party at the Conservative conference descend into claims of homophobic abuse. Attendees had to be removed for using highly offensive homophobic slurs. One gay Conservative attending the party told me, morally, I don't feel like I fit in anymore. I mean, that's wild, especially when the Conservatives are trying to appeal to a broader voter base. If you think who actually legalised gay marriage, it was David Cameron. And you've got, the split of probably these older, maybe more religious Conservatives attacking other conservative people within the party. It's just wild. More here. Kwarteng blames pressure of the Queen's death for botched mini budget, despite the guy looking like he was on something during the Queen's funeral. He's blaming the Queen for his failed monetary policy. They're the ones who also blame Russia for this stuff. At some point, are they ever going to take responsibility? I just don't know. You've got more here. Kwarteng U-turns on U-turn over date of fiscal plan. So he essentially said he'll bring it forward, and then he U-turned. I mean, it's just, what's up with this guy? I genuinely don't get it. You got more. Suella Braverman angers number 10 with attacks on the Human Rights Convention. So this is the Prime Minister here briefing against her own Home Secretary. This is within 3 weeks of Liz Truss taking over, by the way. She's briefing against her own Home Secretary, essentially the third most powerful person in government, and that's who the PM is briefing against. This is someone Liz Truss picked for that role. It's just bizarre. Honestly, just bizarre. There's more cabinet ministers have warned Liz Truss no more unforced errors, but she's made one by cancelling a public information campaign to encourage energy saving. So essentially, even Mogg signed off on it, which was a plan to kind of give people more advice on how to save money on their energy bills. I mean, it wasn't anything game changing here, but Liz Truss said no to it, and essentially cabinet are not happy about the decision that Liz Truss has made. She's made another unforced error, and that's according to Tory boy Pierce, one of the government's biggest supporters, one of the Tory party's biggest supporters in the media. You've got this one from Connor Burns. Connor Burns has been suspended. He's had the whip withdrawn and sacked from his government ministerial position based on some allegations that we are yet to see what those allegations are and how credible they are, but he's had the whip removed pending investigation, which is, in my opinion, the right thing to do. But then you've got something else that's bizarre. You've got Melanie Brown, who was a former Spice Girl, I think, famous band. Saying, really, you're shocked about the complaint? Let me remind you what you said to me in the lift or in lift. There's a couple of missing words there. I do that all the time. She doesn't explain what Connor Burns said in the lift. We don't know if it was Melanie Brown he put the complaint in, but god damn, like what is this? Like, do you guys see what I'm saying here? What is this? What is going on here? I just genuinely don't get it. Labour attained a 30-point lead over the Tories as voters blamed the government for soaring interest rates. Who's to blame for rising mortgage rates? Is it the government or is it global economic factors? You can see 50% of the public blame the government, not global economic factors. So the government's arguments of, it's global factors, it's not working. There's a couple of more things I want to talk about. This is Yvette Cooper, who is I think she's the Shadow Home Secretary, saying clear from briefings tonight that Home Secretary and Prime Minister are loggerheads and publicly disagreeing on major immigration/asylum policy areas, from net immigration targets to Rwanda, much more, adding the impossible chaos and confusion at the heart of the Tory government. Which is true, and even the opposition party are picking up on this stuff. A couple more things. Sources say new Home Secretary Suella Braverman has effectively been gagged by Number 10 and is hugely disappointed small boats hasn't been made a priority by the Prime Minister. I mean, Jesus Christ, woman, like, what the hell? Her team ignored requests from Number 10 to remove references to Rwanda policy in her conference speech. So you can see here, this is the second article, which has talked about how annoyed Liz Truss is with Suella Braverman over talking about the Rwanda policy. It's just madness. And then you've got the creme de la creme, the pièce de résistance. All these other words in foreign languages I cannot pronounce properly, this is from YouGov. This is a poll from the 6th and the 7th of October, so it's pretty fresh. I'm going to release this video on the 10th. Look at the voting intentions. Labour, 52%, down from 54%. The Conservatives, 22%, up 1%. So there's the big conference boost right there. Even the Lib Dems up by 2%. Greens, SNP on the same. Reform UK, 1%. Look at that polling data stonks. Absolutely stonks. You're talking like almost the evisceration of the Conservative Party. Very close to that. I mean, they are in very much deep trouble here, and they have a moron in charge. This is great news for like everyone who's not rich or a moron in this country. Honestly, stonks. Absolute stonks. And I don't know how long this Labour lead in the polls will hold for. I don't even know what it means on election day. But remembering that, the Ed Miliband did quite well in the polls against David Cameron until the big sandwich incident. I think even after that he did fairly well in the polls. The problem was people didn't trust the Labour Party on the economy, but polls on the economy show Labour are up. And it might be the case that the Tories might even do worse in the actual election. I know shy Tories exist, which are people who effectively say they'll vote Labour to the pollsters, but then they'll vote Tory because voting Tory is like quite shamed on because the Tory are scum. Or, okay, I shouldn't say that. Some members of the Tory party are scum. But point being is that I wouldn't be surprised, right, if when it came to election time, if the Tories did worse than what the polls indicated, purely because once they go to the booth, they see their local MP, they'll see the Conservative name, and they're like, these guys are rubbish, and they might vote for Labour or might vote for someone else in that instance, or just spoil their ballot altogether. Because I think something like that happened in 2015, where people just in the booth they just changed their mind and picked the Conservative Party, and now we are in this mess that we are in thanks to those people. Chaos with Ed Miliband. I'll have some of that, please. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.